Hello and welcome to Gilded Loop. My name is Matt, and today we're going to be going over one square 5 ways. So we are looking at using the same yarn and using the same colorways, but utilizing it in 5 different ways amongst 5 different types of granny squares. It's currently summertime. Granny squares are an excellent project to do in the summertime because you don't have a whole blanket laying on your lap. When it's hot outside, it's easy to still do. In this project, we are going to be using the tried and true Caron Simply Soft with everything that you see here. I'm going to go over the different colorways. This Caron Simply Soft you can even find in one of my earlier unboxing videos. It was in there in a yarn haul from Mary Maxim, I believe. So let's go ahead and take a look at the different colorways that you're seeing here, and then we'll start to dive into the different squares and show how to make each square. Each square will be its own video, so this is video 1 of this 5 video series. So if you want to be able to jump to the square that you're looking to learn how to make, you'll be able to do so. But since this is part 1, let's go over each colorway. So first we have this Caron Simply Soft. This is the first colorway, the pinks. And this is soft pink, very easy. Your second colorway is this red, and this is color red. Caron does keep it simple. This is the maroonish color that you're seeing, and this is burgundy. There are 2 different maroon colors that you can find in this Caron Simply Soft. The burgundy is a little bit harder to find, but I like the contrast between. The other one was a little bit too close to the red, so I needed the burgundy for the contrast. Then this colorway, which is the 4th, is country blue. And then finally the last colorway that you see here is just dark country blue. Let's look at a couple stats for this Caron Simply Soft. You're looking at a 4 medium weight. For crochet, they recommend a 5mm hook. This 100% acrylic. It's a 6-ounce skein, 315 yards. And Caron Simply Soft is known for being soft, for washing up well, and for having a nice sheen to it. The yarn does split a little bit when you're working with it, so do keep that in mind. And therefore, I'm going to break my tradition of you normally see me working with Susan Bates inline hooks. But I do use clover hooks. I told y'all I did, and this is a prime instance of when I would use a clover hook. And that is when you're dealing with a yarn that is prone to a little bit more splitting. So Caron Simply Soft, I would always use my clover hook. And I do use it with a couple other projects. I do like my inline Susan Bates hooks for most everything, but some things they just don't work perfect with. So you can call me ambidextrous. I use the inline hooks, the Susan Bates, and these clover tapered hook. Okay, so it did recommend a 4.5. However, it recommended a 5mm. However, I prefer the 4.5 when I'm doing a square because I want it to be a little bit more tight. I specifically was looking to make patterns that didn't have larger holes in them. So I'm going to do a quick review or go over of what each square is that we're dealing with here. So for that, I'll clear the space. So first, we have a standard granny square. This is as easy as it comes, very standard. Because I used the 4.5, the holes are not large, and I think it still looks very nice, and has a nice transition to it. It's a very just simple square using 5 colors and turning every round. So that is our standard granny square. The next one, which is the next closest to it, is this. Now, this has a little bit more textured look to it. I'll zoom up a little bit. This is a dropped granny stitch. So all that means is you're working your normal granny stitch, but you are eliminating the spaces that you would find in between by dropping into that open space below. So let's look at them side by side. So you can see kind of the difference. In this one, the only open spaces you're going to see are these corner spaces going up. But in between, it's going to be a solid stitch. This has definitely more of a textured look to it. Almost gives it like a zigzag pattern. It's not terribly hard to do. It's not as quick as a standard granny square, but doesn't slow you down terribly. So this is still a very nice, if you're trying to do a baby blanket and maybe you want to do a continuous granny square in a baby blanket, but you didn't want to have the open spaces to where baby's finger can really go through there, this is a nice solution. It really gives it a solid texture. So, granny square, traditional, granny clusters. This is still a granny cluster, but your middle cluster is being dropped down to the row below to fill up that space that you would normally have. Okay, so those are the first two. Then we have our standard C2C. This is still a granny cluster. It is done in C2C pattern. And you do have some of the spaces, but you could do the same thing on this, the dropped granny cluster stitch, like I just showed you, just in a C2C. However, I don't have that displayed here. But I do think that this does look nice, just having kind of the blues, and you can imagine the motif of kind of laying these out next to each other. You could do a lot of different interesting things. And you can really pick up here a lot of the sheen that this yarn does put off, which is really nice actually. All right, then we have a mosaic style. So let's look a little bit closer. The mosaic style here I think is just gorgeous. I will say that these mosaic squares, they do take a little bit longer, but not terribly. It's really not that bad. And so I will show how to do this, but it is a dropped treble is what you're picking up there. So we'll go over the mosaic, but it's got a lot of texture. One side is very textural. The disadvantage to this is these do not look the same on the back side. So the first area I showed you, same on both sides. This one, the back side doesn't look bad. Still looks nice, right? But you're not getting this texture. So this is really the top side of your blanket, and this is the back. You do have, this is thicker too, and is much more of a yarn eater. So expect to use a little bit more yarn with this, but still very nice. And then the last, I had never seen anyone do this before. This was something that I kind of created on my own. And this is the same thing. It is a mosaic, but it's done in C2C. So you still have all that texture, the three-dimensional of the mosaic that drops down, and the back is not the same look, but it's just a very plain look. It's not ugly. I think that the back on these look just fine. And you can kind of see those mosaics side by side. So this is, let me zoom out just a little bit. This is our C2C mosaic, and this is our standard mosaic. I've seen a lot of the standard mosaic done, and although they're beautiful, I have never quite seen anyone do these C2C ones. And anyone who's been on my channel for any amount of time knows I have a little bit of a love affair with C2C. I just think it's really pretty. It's got some wonderful texture. So look forward to going over and showing that to you. But let's start with your standard C2C. So we're going to be going over the C2C today. Okay, so we're going to start with our light pink, soft pink. That's what they call it. The Karen Simothoff has a nice center pull, so I will give that to them. All right, so let's go ahead and make our loop here. So all I'm doing here is making a slip knot. You make a slip knot however you like to make it. This is just how I was taught. Oops. Okay. Chain 4, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Now we're going to go back into our starting chain and create a slip stitch. Okay. Now you could do a magic ring. I prefer the chain 4 method. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and chain 4 again. 2, 3, and 4. So I made my ring. I chained 4. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be working back into this ring that I created. Okay. So I have my chain 4 here. I'm going to do double crochet and just go back into the center of this ring. You could be doing your magic ring or the chain 4, either one. So I'm doing double crochet, and I'm going to do that 3 times. I'm creating a granny cluster. Okay, and you can follow this instruction for any C2C granny row. Granny cluster, rather. So, all right, so we have our chain 4. We have our ring, chain 4. I just created a granny cluster, which is 3 double crochets. Okay, now I'm going to come over to the end here, and I'm going to go back into the center of that ring that we created, and I yarned over first, so as if I'm going to make a double crochet. I'm actually doing what's called an extended double crochet right now. All right, so what I'm going to do is I yarned over, put my loop through. I'm going to go ahead and pull through and pull up. Now I have 3 loops on my hook. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to yarn over, but I'm going to pull just through that first loop, not all 3. Okay, so I still have 3. So I just pulled through the first one. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to pull through 2. Okay, I'm going to pull through 2. So I've just created an extended double crochet. So this is going to give me the same length, essentially, as this chain 4 does over here. So each side will be consistent with each other. And this is how we're going to be increasing, is these extended double crochets on this side. Okay, promise this is a very easy square to learn, and one of my absolute go-tos. Now you're going to chain 3. That is going to allow you to go up to your next row. Once you've chained 3, I want you to turn your work. Okay, so now we're going to do some double crochets. So I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go into this open space here, which is in between this extended double crochet and that granny cluster of the 3 double crochet stitches that we did here. So we're just going to go in between, and you'll notice that there's a little bit more of an open space there, okay? Now we're going to make a whole granny cluster. So you're going to do 3 double crochets. So you're not counting that chain 3 as a double crochet. That was just to get you to the next row. So now I've done 2, and now I've done 3. So when you look at this, you should see 4. So you have your chain 3, which just took you to your next row. Then you did a standard granny cluster, which is 3 double crochets right next to each other into that same stitch. Okay? We're going solid here. We're going good. All right. So now we're going to come over and we're going to do another granny cluster into this space on this side. So we're going to do 3 double crochets right here. So let's go ahead and do that together. 1, 2, and 3. So we have our granny cluster right there. We just made it, okay? Now to go up, we're going to need to do an extended double, just like we did on the first row. So we're going to yarn over. We're going to come back into this open space that we were just working in. We're going to pull up that loop. We're going to have 3 on our hook. Yarn over, go through only the first one, then go through 2, then go through 2 more. You've now done an extended double crochet. You're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. That's going to take you to your very next row. Okay, now if we look back at this, I did 3. So I had my 1 cluster here, 2 clusters here, and 3 clusters here. So I have 3 rows. So we're going to do that 3rd row now. I'm going to turn my work. Again, I'm going to go into the space in between this extended double and this granny cluster here, and I'm going to make another granny cluster. So 3 doubles right into the space. So let's go ahead and do that. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So we have 4 when you're looking at it, because you have your chain, and then you have your 3, which makes a granny cluster. So you should have 4 here on the end. Okay, now we're going to make a granny cluster into this middle stitch here. So again, that's just 3 double crochets. So let's go ahead and make those into that same space. That's your granny cluster. 3. And that's done. Now we're going to come back over here, and we have 4 stitches here, right? 1, 2, 3 is your granny cluster, and this is your extended on the end. So we're going to be working in between this granny cluster and this last extended one, okay? So we're going to yarn over, and we're going to do 3 double crochets. We're going to make a granny cluster. 1, 2, and 3. I like to tell people, I think granny clusters are a really great starting point. If you're just kind of learning how to crochet and really wanting to get into it, you learn how to double crochet. Granny clusters are very simple. They're very repetitive. They're really easy to kind of get used to your stitches and keep everything looking neat. And they just have a little bit more appeal. We're going to need to make that extended because we just have those 3 there. So let's make her extended. So yarn over, go through, pull up. Go through the very first loop only, then 2, then 2 again. So we have our extended. All right, now we need to clip our yarn. So open up my scissors. I'm just going to give it just a little bit of a tail. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, just enough. Okay, so I have my 1, 2, 3 rows. Now my next color is red, and this is just red. I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail. What I'm going to do is I'm just gonna pull this right on through. So I'm gonna be doing my chain 3 here. So I'm just gonna pull this real tight, and I'm gonna pull this through, and I'm gonna take both strands that you see here and pull them through just the very first loop. That kind of locks everything together. So think of that as your lock. Then I'm gonna drop this strand that's cut here, and I'm just gonna go with the one connected to the yarn skein. So I counted that as 1 chain, 2 chain, 3 chain. Okay, now, hopefully we're all still together. Now, I sometimes do this a little bit later on, but I'm going to show you what I do is I just take these 2 strands and I'm going to just double knot them. Okay, 1, 2, double knot. That will keep anything from coming loose, and I can still weave these in a little bit later, but this is all going to be hidden because you got to think this is a granny square, so you're going to be connecting it to other granny squares, so that's all going to be hidden. So we have our chain 3 here, so I'm going to go ahead and turn, and I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to come into this open space here, and I'm going to do my granny cluster, so 3 double crochets. Let's go ahead and make those. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so I have my 4th, which is my chain space here, and then my 3, which makes my granny cluster. You're going to be making a few more granny clusters in between. Just go into each of these open spaces in between these granny clusters. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm just going to make my granny cluster, and anytime I say granny cluster, it is just 3 double crochets crocheted into the exact same space, the open space in between, which is what makes the granny stitch so easy. You're just working into that open space in between. And there's 3. And I'm going to make mine here in between this end space and this granny cluster. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now I just need to do my extended so I can go up to the next row. Through first, then through 2, and through 2. Chain 3. Now we're cooking with gas. It's kind of going to be moving pretty quickly here. Granny cluster in between here. 1, 2, 3. And granny clusters in between the stitches across this row. Oops. This is why I use the clover on this, because I was snagging like crazy with the inline hook with this particular yarn. And in between here, my last granny cluster. 1, 2, 3. But with this clover hook, I'm not really snagging hardly at all, so it's much more pleasant. All right, so I'm going to do my extended. So I'm starting out like a double crochet. I have my 3, go through the first, then through 2, and through 2. Chain 3. So far I have 2 rows, and I'm doing 3 rows, so I have 1 more row of the red. Okay. I'm going to go in between here, do granny cluster. Whoop. See, I almost snagged right there. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to come back through here and do granny cluster. cluster. Granny cluster. Between this last one here. 1, 2, 3, and then our final extended through 1, through 2, and through 2. Okay, we have all 3 rows of our red color done in. So now we're going to be going to burgundy next. So I'm just going to go ahead and clip. Go ahead and pull in our burgundy here. Okay, leave myself a little bit of a chain. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this through. And I'm just kind of holding this in place down here while I lock that in. Pull that more tight. Drop my tail. Hold here, kind of pull these 2. And I got 2 more to go. So then that counts as my chain 3. Now, you can tie these now, but it takes up a lot of time, so I just go back when the square is done and go through and tie them all then. So I'm just going to turn my work. I got my chain 3. I got to go in between this space. I'm going to make granny cluster. 1, 2. Okay, so we have successfully started in with the burgundy. What I want you to do is go ahead and finish burgundy and go ahead and finish your country blue, or if you're doing a different colorway, which you don't have to use these colors, I just think that they do look nice together. Finish your 4th color, and I'm going to meet you back here on the dark country blue, which is the 5th color, which is where we will start our decrease row. So meet you back here in just a second. Okay, so what we've got here is we started on our light pink, our red, our burgundy, we did our light country blue, and now we're in our dark country blue. I did start to work a little bit of the dark country blue. I worked almost 2 entire rows, so we're doing 3 rows in each color, right? So you're going to continue to do your increases as you go, as I showed you with doing that extended double. That's your increase, okay? Now, when we come up to this 2nd row of the dark country blue, this is going to be, you're still going to do an increase to get into this row. This is the last row that we're doing before we start on the decrease. So I'm going to come over to the edge here and let's start to work on what the decrease is going to look like. So I have my one last cluster for this row that I need to complete. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I am still doing my extended double. This is my last extended double that I'm doing. Okay, and you can kind of see how that extended double just keeps it kind of growing along that edge there. Okay, now I'm going to chain 3. So far, this looks similar to what we've been doing, right? So when I chain 3, I'm going to turn my work. Now, here is your major difference. You're going to yarn over, but we've been going in here, right? In between this cluster, this granny cluster here, and the extended that we were making, this is where we've been going in to work in. We're not going to do that. We're going to come right over here. So we're going to have our 4 here, and we're going to skip all those, and we're just going to go right into this first cluster here. This is where you start to decrease. So I'm going to do a granny, which is 3. And you can immediately see the decrease forming. There's your corner, okay? There's your decrease forming. So let's go ahead and finish making our granny clusters across the row in all of our open spaces. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Okay. Okay, so we did our decrease here in this corner. We can almost see it's almost immediately curving in, much like what you see here on the other finished product. And then we worked our granny clusters across that third row, almost all the way across. So now we're just over to this very corner here. And you have your last cluster. So you have your extended here, which creates that open space, almost like 4 clusters here. And you might be thinking, well, what do I do to decrease on this side? So let me show you. So we're going to yarn over. We're going to go in that open space in between the cluster and that extended right there. Okay. Do a double crochet. Boom, you just decreased. Look at that. You can see the curve forming. So I'm gonna, this is actually where we do have to change colors again. So let's just go ahead and get the color change done real quick. So again, I'm just gonna take my snips on camera, hopefully. Snip it. And then we're gonna go ahead and zoom out just a little bit. Take our light country blue, and we're just going to pull it in, and just like we have been doing, we're going to lock it in, drop our tail, and chain 2 more. So we're going to have a total of chain 3s. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and tie these now rather than later. Just doing a double knot that prevents any movement from occurring. So I'm at chain 3. Turn my work. Now, because I'm decreasing now, I'm not going to be working into this space right here. I'm working into this space. So yarn over and do my granny cluster here. Okay, lay this down for a second so you can really see the curvature that's starting to happen here. Let's go ahead and work this across the row in each of the open spaces. We're going to do a granny cluster. Thank you for staying with me if you've been with me this far. We're nearing the end. We're on the final stretch. We're in the decreases. Now, you can do a smaller square. You don't have to do the full, because your square here with these 5 colors is about 8.5 inches. So if you want to do, a lot of people like 5-inch squares or 6-inch squares. So if you don't want to have an 8.5-inch square, do 4 colors. And 4 colors would probably, see, each block is about 1.5 inches. So we're at 8.5. So that would probably, if you go down to drop a color, probably be close to a 7-inch square. You could probably even get it down to a 5, depending on how many rows you do. Just going to work across and do one more decrease. And then we'll go towards the end of our square and see what we're working with here. Okay, granny, granny. We are getting there. All right, so then we just have this. Now, here's where it gets a little bit different. What you're going to do is, now that we're on our decrease, you're going to yarn over, but you're not going into this open space anymore. You are going into this very top stitch in this granny cluster right here. Okay, and then you're going to double crochet into that. Okay, we're going to chain 3. Let's work across this row, and I'll meet you back. All right, so I worked my second row of the lighter blue, and I'm down to, I worked my last granny cluster here. So I'm going to yarn over, and remember, I'm not going into the open space here. I'm working at the top of this third stitch of this last granny cluster from the row below. Double, chain 3, turn my work. Okay, see how we're decreasing? All right, let's go ahead and work another few colors and keep on doing that each time. So I'll meet you back here in just a minute and we'll have done another color. Okay, so we've worked a few more colors. So I worked through the burgundy and I have started on the red. You can really see the square forming now. See? And it just gets easier and easier. The more that you decrease, the quicker it feels like it's going, because the fewer clusters you're having to work then. All right, so let's go ahead and work a row together. So I just finished this row. I'm going to go ahead and chain 3, 1, 2, 3 to make my second row. Yarn over. Remember, I'm not working in here, I'm working in here because I'm still decreasing. So I'm just making a cluster, a granny cluster. And I'm going to cluster in all of my open spaces across the row, just as I have been. See what I mean? This kind of like snags a little bit. It is very soft yarn though, and it does make for nice projects. You give this to somebody and they're gonna really enjoy it because it is soft. I will say that it does fade a little bit over the years. I have some projects that I've worked on with this 20 years ago. This was actually, I think, one of the first yarns I started to ever work with. So again, we're going into the top of this last cluster. And it doesn't fade terribly, but it does a little bit. 1, 2, 3. But that project that I worked on 20 years ago, it's only faded like just a little bit. And the only reason that I even know that it faded was because I still had some of the original skein. And if I compared them, you know, you could see a slight difference. I wouldn't have known otherwise. And I think it's just from washing and whatnot. Just like if you were to wash any of your sweaters or anything like that, color doesn't stay as vibrant as when you first have them brand new. But it doesn't fall apart, doesn't create those, the rough cotton textures or anything terribly on it, so it holds up pretty well. I think that's why Caron Simply Soft has been around forever, and there's been a lot of imitators who've tried to imitate them over the years, but no one has really stood the test of time and has stayed around as long. I think Hobby Lobby even just recently discontinued their Soft and Sleek, or a huge chunk of their Soft and Sleek, maybe not all of it, which was a direct comparison. Premier had, gosh, I can't even remember what they called it, but they did have one that was a direct competitor. That's 3, I think. And they have discontinued theirs. Eversoft is what Premier was called. So the OG of the Caron Simply Soft she stood the test of time. Like I said, I worked on this 20 years ago, and it was not a new yarn then. It was tried and true then. So, and some of the colors I worked on before are even still around if I ever had to make a repair. I think I need one more chain. Okay, I'm going to go into this one. Do a granny cluster. But, and the more you wash it, the softer it gets. I find that the granny stitch holds up really well over time. It's just a sturdy stitch. And of course you could do this whole blanket in a large C2C format. C2C granny cluster, it's just like a large square. I initially picked these colors to be more of a 4th of July type theme. Just kind of looked nice, and I added the burgundy. And I thought that the pink went better than white. It was just an inspo from what helped me to put these colors together. I didn't want to do just straight red, white, and blue, which has been done to death. I just wanted to have a little bit of an inspiration from those colors, and that's what helped me put these colors together. And I think it's going to look really nice. We are nearing the end here, and I'll show you how we finish our piece off. So we have our last granny cluster going in. Top of this one. Okay, now we need to do a little bit of work on the end to just loop this on. So we're going to chain our 3, 2, 3, just like we have been. Turn my work. I'm not doing another granny because this one is a row of 1. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to yarn over on this last one. I'm just going to come and we're going to slip stitch directly into this top of this granny cluster. So pull through here, pull through here, and then let me clip this off. Move some of these things out of the way, and I just like to pull this through this last and pull tight. And see, that just makes it helps you when you're putting you're connecting these pieces, or if you have a border or anything. So you're left with quite a few tails, but they're all tied off, so you can just weave them in. But what I wanted to show you here is in So we should be just about almost the same size, and we will be. But I wanted to show you ways that you could lay this out. So you could lay this out directly next to each other. You can see what would happen here. You would have like a big giant diamond if you put 4. Yeah. So either you have the diamond, or you have this. I think I would go with the diamond. But if you just wanted to have them kind of like go like this, you certainly could. But I do like the diamond look. I hope that you got something out of this tutorial and that you find yourself doing this pattern as well. And make sure to tune in for the next installment where we will be going over standard, granny, the dropped granny, the mosaic C2C, and your regular mosaic. So this is part 1 of 5, and I'll see you all soon. Have a great day.